Okay, guys.
I hope not.
Charlie's not here. We're going to be going over we're going over Herbert Hoover in the White House, and I'm pretty sure that Charlie's going to make a reference to vacuum cleaners.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah, he's already.
He does it when we're not talking about Hoover.
Oh, negative 5 minutes.
Oh, we got to be quick.
30 seconds is here.
We got to be quick. Okay.
Hi. Hi. Bye. Hi. Shoot. Gotta do this quickly.
Okay. Okay. Here's a piece of paper.
All right, I'm gonna.
Money.
Yeah.
$5.
Put it in the pot, dude. In the pot.
Oh,
he comes in with the singles.
I was almost going to come in with those, but I was able to redeem myself for already. Put a number on here saying what, at what point in the video do you think he's going to make the reference?
First off, I have a question. Are we timing this after?
I'll time it.
Yeah, the person behind the camera.
Introductions?
The person behind the camera is going to.
I'm just saying, does the timing start after the introduction?
As soon as you introduce.
Yes,
Actually,
as soon as the introduction takes place.
Like today, we're talking about such and such.
Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure as soon as he makes.
I'm gonna say within 20 seconds.
As soon as he makes a reference, you're gonna have the it's like the Groucho dot from You Bet Your Life.
Yeah.
And
So,
if the closest one to the time, the closest one to the time gets the money.
All right.
And if there's a tie,
we're doing it anonymously.
If
we're
somebody's,
doing this anonymously.
if somebody's
right
2 minutes over or 2 seconds over and 2 seconds under, the one that's under is the one that breaks the tie.
So
What?
closest. Closest.
So-
We're doing price
But
and
you
right
can-
rules.
But no, it's not closest without going over. It's just closest. But if it's over and under, then
The person under gets.
Oh, if it's like a tie. You mean.
if it's a tie, the under is the one that gets.
Okay.
So
All right. Do you have yours?
yes.
I will take it in the pile. I'm not gonna look
Okay.
at it. Hold it up. Hold it up.
Okay, good
You
idea.
can do things. All right.
I want another one.
Nobody sees anything.
Sorry, they're like
I
blowing
didn't
all
put
over
my
the place.
name on it.
I didn't either, but
It's
you
okay.
can
We
tell
know
my
handwriting.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think. I know my handwriting, so I definitely know mine.
Okay. I think
I put a
Larry's
whole
is the
sentence
sloppiest.
down, so.
Jesse's got pretty neat handwriting.
Mine's
thank
just-
you.
What do you know about my handwriting?
I can't understand
I
it.
think
He's
I know
offended.
I've never written you anything.
I've seen your notes for when we've done the show, so.
I don't take notes. This is all based on lies.
You're beginning to sound like a.
Fake news. He's offended. Called
Already.
fake
Wait,
news.
is that on?
Already.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh shoot!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Josh, and today we are going to be starting the first of 5 spring break episodes. We're going to have an episode up every day this week. Charlie, welcome back.
Thank you so much
It's
for having
been
me.
quite some time,
Hello.
but I'm glad that you
Nice
are
to
back
see
on
you.
the panel.
Likewise, you too.
Charlie.
I'm here.
Welcome
And
back.
Jesse,
Alright,
I
thank you.
appreciate that you decided to spend your spring break with us.
Thank you.
Well, it's not like we
So-
have the money to go to what's it called?
Not like last time. I
yeah.
ran away.
Already then, a little while ago, we decided that we were going to have a drawing. We wanted to do a presidential biography, so we put the names of different presidents in a bag, and whichever one we drew out would be the one that we would discuss a book of or a biography of, and we drew Herbert Hoover. And today we're going to be going over Herbert Hoover in the White House, The Ordeal of the Presidency by Charles Rappleye. So,
I used mine at the library, so sorry that you didn't get to find it all.
No, it's okay. I bought it, so now I own it.
Now you can eat it later.
Yeah, in case I get hungry.
Yeah, right. Good fiber. Good fiber.
Good fiber.
okay.
Knowledge by ingestion.
This is going to be a very interesting discussion because Herbert Hoover is he's got a very debatable legacy. And most people will recognize the name under 3 accounts. One from the All in the Family theme song, which is where Larry recognized him. The other one is from Little Orphan Annie, which is where Tori, who's going to be here later in the week, recognized him. And the other one is the fact that Herbert Hoover, and this is the more historically accurate, preceded Franklin D. Roosevelt. And Hoover was the president that oversaw the Great Depression and the stock market crash of 1929. So the discussion starter that I have for this one is, after reading this book, in what way do you foresee Herbert Hoover's legacy?
May I answer first?
Yes.
Since I haven't been here. Again, thanks. Great to be back. Really is.
It's great to have you back.
I agree. Thank you. I want to say I don't think he got enough credit he deserved. Now, again, I'm not a history major, but I will say I do think he made a very good, solid attempt. I mean, he was pushing for the public works program, and that would put people on back to work and whatnot. But he did have his faults, like all presidents. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. Yeah. But I think he worked a little too hard, according to the book.
It depends on what area that you're measuring. Herbert Hoover was fantastic in everything else that he did.
Yeah, I mean,
he was a mining engineer.
Yeah.
He was a humanitarian. He worked with the Belgian embassy during World War I.
Right.
He was the Secretary of Commerce under
Hoover the human. I cannot.
Yeah, great humanitarian.
Yeah. He could have repealed the 18th Amendment though, because that mostly would have put people back to work, and it would have kept things a little lighter.
That was an interesting decision of his to not repeal the 18th Amendment, because he was, I mean, he personally was a social drinker. He wasn't. Yeah. He would drink 2 martinis each night later on in his life.
Yeah.
But
how's that legal now? Oh wait, that's right.
But he, but otherwise, I think that there was in many cases, public servants make decisions in order to satisfy their base. Right. And Herbert Hoover, he was playing the political game, and he wasn't really that good at it. And as president, he was the wrong person for the wrong time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with that. So I am gonna strongly agree with that as well. Yeah.
From a personality standpoint, I'd agree with you, but I think from a policy standpoint, I think had the country stuck with what he had intended, the Depression might not have gone on as long as it did. That's my take on it.
I mean, granted, Hoover was always from the standpoint that in an event where a financial crisis takes place, one should let it be and let it fix itself.
But that's not going to happen.
If there's a local problem, it should be up to the local charities. And the federal government, in his mind, was not meant to get into direct involvement with these particular situations, and he was holding off on it for quite some time. It worked under Coolidge. There was no stock market crash. Coolidge was an isolationist who was very conservative, more so libertarian conservative, that he was able to foresee a feel-good time.
I was going to say, I think, that we've learned from other books that we've read, recently too about, stocks and, the financial aspect of the country is that depressions and stock market crashes aren't just something like, yes, they happen right away and you see them right away, but what leads up to them takes time. And when things like the Great Depression happen, we have a tendency to blame the person who's sitting in the chair at the time it happens, when we kind of forget that it's not something that like, oh, well, this decision today resulted in this decision tomorrow, or this result tomorrow.
Right.
It's something that kind of, takes some time. So I mean, I feel like everybody kind of like looks down on him, I guess, away a lot, just because he was the one that was kind of sitting there when everything
That's what I'm saying.
went to,
in a way. That's what I was trying to say. That's the stutter.
Yeah, like when everything went down. But you know, I don't know.
I agree with the
think
fact
he's
that
capable of it.
you can't judge him as being, you can't confirm that he was merely a bad president. He wasn't a bad president. He was a failure. He failed as a president, but I wouldn't say that he was a bad president. I think it was just him being in the wrong place, the wrong time. He had the wrong personality. He was very uptight, intense, aloof. He was very
monotone.
very monotone. He doesn't sound like his predecessor, the person that succeeded him in FDR. FDR was much more outgoing. He was much more presentable. He catered to the common man. He made efforts to cater to them.
Yeah. And I was gonna say with the federal government getting involved, how he disagreed with that. I disagree with that. I mean, I don't like his decision on that. The federal government should be getting involved. Can they get involved with everything? Well, they're the government, as we all say, but
it all depends. But Hoover was a very stubborn man.
yeah.
And in that front. And he was very. I felt he was somewhat insecure too, because he was a friendly man. He was friendly with his the people that he knew, but he was not very presentable to the general public.
Yeah.
And that's what cost him
A lot.
after one term.
But like I said, I strongly believe the federal government and FDR. He got Social Security going within like 1935.
Shortly there, but funny enough,
Yeah.
Hoover wanted to put something forth that was very
I
similar.
was gonna say, in a way, I feel like Hoover was kind of overshadowed. Like, I feel like if FDR wasn't as great and successful as he was, would Hoover have seemed like such a failure? I guess. You know, it just. I mean, you have to look at who succeeded him. In FDR, you know, I don't read a lot of presidential biographies, but
Me either.
my understanding, my basic general American knowledge is that he's considered a great president. And everybody.
He is ranked usually in the top 3 with Washington
Exactly.
and Lincoln.
So yeah, so he's like a great president. So I mean, I feel like anybody would look like a failure before him and after him. You know.
And Roosevelt made that known too, because he would constantly campaign on not going back to the days of the Depression. We don't want Hoover again. We don't. When someone said that they should offer Hoover a position in an area that he was strong with, as with this being humanitarian work, FDR said that he's not Jesus Christ and is not in the business of raising people from the dead. But,
yeah, and also it seems like that was a two-way street, right? Where Hoover was not a fan of FDR.
No,
he
he wasn't.
made that very, very known through
Yeah,
his writings and whatnot.
one of his last unfinished writings had to do with his position on FDR. It was an unpublished work called The Freedom Betrayed. And it had to do with, it was him defending his record, but also going after FDR on the way that he handled the Second World War, which I personally felt was one of his stronger areas, the way that he handled. Aside from the Japanese American citizens in the concentration camps.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a very controversial issue at the time, whether or not we should have gotten involved in that war. And, it turned out the way it did, and I think it was the right thing that we got involved. But the isolationist movement was very strong at that time. And, I mean, it's well reasoned too. I think, because I mean, even now today, right? Like we still have this kind of need to kind of police the world and be out there, and it's getting wearisome and old.
Yeah, that wave of presidents, though, you had Wilson, who did what he could to hold off on entering the First World War until he finally entered. And then you had Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover, who were all very isolationist. They had a very similar tone to them. Harding is deemed one of our worst presidents because of the Teapot Dome scandal and how he gambled away White House China in poker games. But
poker. No.
Coolidge is deemed as Coolidge is often respected, especially by libertarians, with his the way that he kept out of foreign affairs and was able to cater to a feel-good era that was the Roaring '20s. And then Hoover did what he could to try and follow up with that and take the next step, but he was on an empire of sand. So
is it safe to say right field, the wrong cow?
I don't know, because
I'm being
the
serious.
question
I am
is,
being serious. Right field,
Hoover,
but the wrong cow.
I don't even, if some people are just not cut out to be president, and Hoover is one of these people.
Well, let's see.
But it really, I think it was even the fact that there was this crisis that took place made it even worse.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Back to the point with Hoover and
I like cows, but
with regard to the origins of Social Security, as per page 252, it says, Hoover was so encouraged by the signs of recovery that he felt free to pursue some long-range projects that had been sidelined since the stock crash. Among the more intriguing of these was his hope to establish some sort of private system that would provide financial security against illness, job loss, and old age. A patchwork of such policies, some run by state governments and others associated with large companies or labor unions, covered several million workers, but most Americans remained on their own. Doesn't that sound like Social Security to you?
Well, except for the fact that Social Security is run by the federal government.
He was looking to do something this was the workings of Social Security, but we credit it completely to FDR because he's the one that got it passed. He's the one that the structure began with that, and that's what the Social Security that we know today has the roots of the FDR administration, and that was from 1935. But that was at a time when the life expectancy was much lower.
Yeah. You wash your hands. Oh my God, I'm gonna live another 10 years, and then you have advances in medicine, and then you have the technology, and then again, I know I said this in previous episodes. I think very, very small rant. In the 1800s, if you were going to be 30, that's like, oh God, help you, bless your soul. Now in the 30s, you have, I think they had a vaccine for polio. No, that was the 50s. But there was a vaccine that came out.
1953 was when Jonas Salk's polio vaccine came into.
Yeah. I think was it insulin then too? Something about insulin, where he said it was like he didn't want to profit from it.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Like I said, I might have my facts mixed up.
Not like the guy that wanted to profit several times the amount on the AIDS vaccine. But that's a whole other story unto itself. But does anybody have anything else they want to add?
I don't know. This was like my first presidential book about a president. So
Me too.
I don't know. It was interesting. I mean, I'm weird about my history. I love history, but I don't know. I feel like this is too recent for me to consider interesting history. I found a little to be on the boring side.
I'm a U.S. presidential history buff. I've been since I was 7.
Yeah.
So
I played drums.
This is my jam.
I love jam. Concord grape jelly is good for you.
I don't like that kind of jam.
What is wrong with you? I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I was gonna say that. Well, and the thing is, though, it's not that I didn't find it uninteresting. It was, you're learning about a person who ran our country during, a time when our country was falling apart, and so it's kind of interesting to see what led to what, but I don't know. I'm more of an ancient history kind of person, or medieval times, all that fun.
Yeah,
16th century and prior, 17th
Where people
century.
live to 30 and it's
that's not necessarily
yeah, I'm
something
totally
I
into
really.
people dying at 30. That sounded really bad. I'm sorry.
But what did you guys think about the book itself? The way that Rappleye went about.
I thought you organized it pretty well.
I agree, but it was. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's a pretty thorough examination of the guy's life.
Yeah.
I was gonna say any more thorough, you should have been just like excuse me, but I think he did I think he did a phenomenal job. However, there is a such saying as too much of a good thing is not good for you. I mean, I was reading some chapters, I was going through them like this. I'm like, wow, I like this. But there were some chapters it was like, my God, just end the chapter.
I can see where I think sometimes
Yeah.
it felt like eating whole wheat pasta.
I love pasta.
But-
well, yeah, see, there you go.
But it was very, I mean,
I usually compare things to Moby Dick, where I find like half the chapters are so interesting, and then the other half of the chapters are like, I don't care about a whale's spleen. Don't tell me. Crime and punishment.
but
Not Larry.
I smell ham.
Oh,
I love ham.
beautifully.
Glazed, of course. Wait, what?
Pardon.
I'm a little slow today.
That's okay.
But I mean, as far as I think there were points in this, I think there were moments where it did plot very much.
I mean,
And-
it comes down
but
to
I fell
still
asleep
pretty
when
And I
Nice.
think that there were, I mean, there were areas where they concentrated a lot on that I felt wasn't entirely necessary, but on the other hand, I thought there were details that they missed.
Yeah.
Where, for instance, they didn't really examine the Hoovervilles very much. And
No.
I think that,
Yeah, I was surprised
that
they
was,
didn't
I
notice
think
that.
that was essential to it was very,
Because that's what I associate
major
with,
response to his
with like
administration.
Hoover. Whenever I hear him, I think of like the Hoovervilles that I learned
Hoovervilles,
about
the Hoover
in like
Shan- the
history
Hoover-
class.
Hoover Shacks, the Hoover soup, where people would go into the diners, they'd order a glass of water, and when they got the water, they would take the ketchup and the salt and the pepper, they'd put it in the cup, they'd drink it and leave. But
Now, that's the
that's how
first time-
hungry they were.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you're
That was
hungry,
a
you'll eat
desperate
anything.
situation.
Yeah.
But the biggest curveball that really took some points off this for me, not everything in here was correct. Because they said that on page 18 that Warren Harding was 53 when he died. He was 57. He was born November 2nd, 1865, and he died August 2nd, 1923. Even worse, they said that Lou Hoover was 68, when in actuality she was 69. That one's worse, because that was his wife.
Oh, well.
The fact that it went through, I'm thinking, rounds of editing, and that they published incorrect common knowledge is unacceptable. Especially with
Yeah.
the fact that you cannot even detect, because Hoover was born in 1874. His wife was she was a few months older than he was.
Right.
And the math is there.
I'm
And
not good at math.
I think
But I
that,
agree.
Clearly,
Neither is the
Hoovervilles
author.
aren't either.
yeah, that's on the
Hey, that's why we read books. We don't do math.
the author in
Numbers.
the
Yeah.
book. I mean,
Makes you wonder what else in here is wrong.
Charlie
but
is a cow.
I mean, it does damage trust. But I think that he did a good job laying things out, because he really did, as you said, he gave a very thorough account of several details that took place. The games of medicine ball, his interactions with cabinet members.
I mean, when the Veterans March, how he was not ready to call the troops. I mean, that was like the very last resort. I like how they explored that a little bit more. I mean, I read through those chapters like this, but I've learned a lot from it. You tell me what's on page, part 1, page 85, I'm going to say chicken noodle soup is something I don't eat. So basically what I'm saying is, I wouldn't be able to know what's on that page. But the rest, part 1 for me dragged. But part 2 and 3 was, wow, I'm liking it.
It was different parts in different areas.
Yeah.
But what another detail that they withheld was when Hoover and FDR were in the car going to the inauguration.
There's a picture of that in the book.
Yes, there's a picture
Yeah.
Some of the
on the very last page. And it was incredible that,
they actually did that.
yeah,
Now today they have 7 limousines.
presidential transition.
But the incredible thing with FDR was, despite the fact that he was inflicted with polio, and they did elaborate on the fact that he was out of the picture in 20s politics was a good thing, because it was an era of democratic failure, and he picked up right. He became governor of New York he was elected in 1928, and he was able to rise at the right time. But when they were in the car, but he was also able to, the fact that he was able to present himself and get the help that he needed to make it look like he was a far more capable person.
Right.
Because he was paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah.
But when they were in the car, there were only only one thing was spoken. They passed a particular building that I think Hoover was involved with putting together. And FDR said, "Lovely steel." And that was not in the book. And I think that was a pretty crucial, because they said they rode in silence.
Yeah.
But those two words were spoken. So, a little bit nitpicky, but I think that it's still I think that there's particular details that, like the
I was
Hoover.
gonna say, I think like for people like me, who don't normally, read too much into the different presidents and their lives and their decisions and everything, I think it's, a good book to give you an overview of his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this
probably
was
somebody
very-
who like knows more details like you
Yes.
do. Like, nope. Whereas somebody like me is like, hey, I learned about Herbert Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
Look what I did. Like, yeah.
Yeah, the way I often also will measure it alongside the William A.D. Gregorio biography. That he has a complete book of U.S. presidents, and its particular details of their
It's a thick
life
book.
and
It's
administration.
a very thick.
And another thing I felt that they did, I like the fact that they concentrated on his presidency and didn't do because it was presented as a book about his presidency.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll throw in an overall biography. They incorporated snippets of his growing up, because he was orphaned at a very young age. He had an older brother and a younger sister. The one thing that bothered me a little bit is that when they first presented that, they cut it off in an awkward time. They picked up on it again, but I still think that it was the way that they cut it off at one point was weird. And I felt that they should have done a little bit more if they were to engage in any flashbacks. The way that he rose to rose to a higher status through his role as a mining engineer, which they make a flashback reference to him being a mining engineer. He approached something this way. If they're going to revisit something, I think that and his work with the Belgian embassy, and then they did make mention to how Truman was fond of him and gave him a position to help oversee, or how he was overseeing the rebuilding of Germany and Austria, overseeing things over there after World War II, which it was Ally occupied.
So you had Coolidge, Harding, and Truman all admiring the man, the one outlier.
Mm-hmm.
He and Mr. Roosevelt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Hoover also very much, he admired Wilson too, even though they were both very different people. I know as far as foreign policy they were somewhat similar, but Wilson was very, he believed in a very powerful federal government, because he was the one that instated he's the one that instated the income tax. It was 1913, so he had just assumed office. That and the Federal Reserve. So
Yeah, it's oof.
it we have any general final thoughts?
No, I think it's an interesting time. He was an interesting man to be in that time, with these philosophical questions about where, the future of the country, and unfortunately, whatever you want to stack it up to, he wasn't able to get that second term, and who knows what might have happened, who knows where we might have been now. But, that's about it. I don't...
Alrighty then. How would we rate it on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars permitted? Larry?
I'm going to go right in the middle. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I thought it was pretty good. It's a thorough examination of the man's life. I learned a lot. But Josh kind of knocked it down a couple for me, talking about these little details, because now you got to wonder what else might not be accurate there. So I was just going to give it an even 3. Neutral.
Jesi?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Larry again, even 3. I mean, I learned some things, but it's also not normally something that if we didn't read it for the panel, I probably would have never read it at all. It's just not something I would normally pick up. So I learned some things, but it's also like, oh, okay.
And of any presidential biography, this one's a little bit of an oddball.
Yeah, so
Because people seem to go, they seem to look at the top name candidates, or the top, like the Washington, the Lincoln.
I'm going to give it a 3 too. 3.5 tops. That's it.
I'm giving it a contingent 3 because I think that it did lay things out very thoroughly. I think that it really, I think that it fleshed out Herbert Hoover as a person very well. I cannot overlook the details, though, the particular common knowledge facts that were incorrect. I am going to read another biography, Herbert Hoover: A Life, by Glenn Jeansong, and if I find that one does a better, if that one takes elements of this and makes it clearer and fleshes him out even better, and his administration, I may end up bumping this down. The lowest I would bump it down to, though, is a 2. Because I think that at this point, as far as Herbert Hoover biographies are concerned, this one does its job quite well. But I think that the people that should, I think advanced people should be reading this. I don't think this is a book for beginners.
I agree.
And the advanced readers that...
No offense.
The advanced readers that are checking this out, they would feel that the incorrect common knowledge would feel a bit like a slap in the face. But if you're interested, here is a copy of the book.
I got the same one.
And be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
Larry,
Let's
that involves you too.
That's quite something. I swore that Charlie was going to make a mention of Hoover back in
Simultaneously
not
extremely
once.
proud of you for keeping
Yes,
it
he
serious
stayed
and on
on
topic.
track,
So
but
like,
Oh, thank you.
the one time
Also,
we were waiting for you
but
to
the
go
one
on a
time we're
tangent.
waiting-
Let's check the times.
so
Did I
somebody said 3 minutes and
that was
11
me.
seconds. So Josh may be the winner here.
Congratulations.
20 seconds within mentioning the name of Hoover.
Sorry.
I like Larry's is very specific. 21 seconds.
Oh,
I nearly said a
See what you
minute
did
and
there.
20, but then I switched it to first 18 seconds.
So you were taking bets on me making a dumb joke.
Josh gets the pool.
Josh gets the pool.
I had faith in you, Charlie. I knew I had faith in you.
Wait, you
Well done, sir. Well done.
I was really expecting him to be like, we read a book about Herbert Hoover, and he's just like,
Vacuums!
vacuums! That's what I was waiting for. And I was like,
Here's the thing,
oh.
though. Here's the thing. You introduced, he welcomed him back. You got him off topic. So because right from the gate you didn't say the name, he was kind of distracted. So I was just like, damn it, damn it.
I thought you guys were going to have at least a little bit of faith in the fact that he wouldn't be distracted.
I feel like,
Oh,
wait,
not
hold on. I
distracted.
feel
I was
like-
just waiting for something to be
Josh,
said.
Josh was stalling too.
Oh, we don't hate you. That's what I was saying.
Which is why I made mine very specific within 20 seconds of mentioning the name Hoover.
I like that
So
conditional.
you thought I was going to bring up
Disqualified.
So you went 32 4 seconds without.
Winner!
Yeah, put for half an hour.
We're filming
Yeah, you
this?
talked about that
We're filming this? We're filming this?